Alexandria City Jail. I photographed an Easter Sunday service at the George Washington Masonic Memorial. I photographed a tombstone rededication in the Jewish part of the Alexandria National Cemetery. Let me find where I was. So there was Nina, the artist, who had gone to the High School of Music and Art, majored in sculpture, and studied painting at the Brooklyn Museum Art School. And there was Nina, who had another side of her brain working, who worked as executive assistant to the director of a national association. I planned their annual and mid-year meetings. I was responsible for the printed document of recording those proceedings. I staffed 3 committees, and I did this while I was the single mom of 4 teenage kids. So I had to be organized and productive. So those laminated pages out there, they have little notes of how many times I tried to reach each minister, what they said, what I could call back, and in the by and by, it got done. For United in the Spirit, as I said, that was easier for me because I worked with the Black History Museum. This was decades before digital photography, decades before cell phone cameras, and I wanted to be as unobtrusive as possible. So I didn't use flash. I handheld the camera. It was technically very difficult, and when I realized how difficult it was, again I thought, I don't have the skills to do this, I can't do it. And I happened to be at a Chamber of Commerce lunch, and I was seated across from the man who was the head of the photography department at Northern Virginia Community College, and he said, enroll in a class. And I said, but it's after the enrollment period. And he said, enroll in the class, I'll make it happen for you. So I enrolled at Nova. I processed all the film, because these were film days, not only typewriters, but film. I processed all the film there. I made all the prints there. Stephen matted all those prints, and together we framed them. There were 107 prints in the exhibit at the Lyceum. What goes into making an exhibit? I started with contact sheets. Contact sheets are called contact sheets because you make them by putting negatives in contact with photographic paper. Then I made 5x7 work prints, and from those work prints I decided which ones would be in the exhibit. So what you see here is a process that it was complicated. There was a lot of steps that went into it. Over the years, Converging Paths came out of their frames. I just couldn't store those 107 prints. And they were stored in boxes in my home. And the boxes began to deteriorate, and I was worried that the prints would be damaged or lost. So I re-enrolled in a supervised study program at Nova and learned how to use their large format scanner. And what you see up here is the process, is what resulted from scanning all of those prints. There are a couple of things I want to say about the experience of Converging Paths, a couple of memories that are very strong in my mind. At First Baptist Church, there are services for the deaf congregation. So I came in and saw, I guess, because there was no sound, the deaf congregation singing Onward Christian Soldier in sign language. And it was like watching sea anemones in the ocean current. It was so beautiful, and the silence was beautiful. I went to a weeknight prayer service at Ebenezer Baptist Church. And a prayer that I heard there, I will never forget. It was late fall, and a woman said, "Dear Jesus, some of our sisters and brothers have no place to lay down their heads on this cold and rainy night. They have crept into the corners of buildings for protection from the wind and the rain. Sweet Jesus, lay down your love like a blanket over them to keep them safe." It was so powerful. It just brings a lump to my throat to think of it today. At the rededication of the Jewish tombstones, I was very taken by the prayer that the rabbi said, and I asked him for a copy of the prayer, and he took that sheet from his loose-leaf binder and handed it to me. At a Gudas Achim Hebrew congregation, you can't carry a camera into the sanctuary on a Sabbath. I was invited to come to a Sabbath service so that I could see what happened there, and to come back later where parts of the service would be reenacted. A vision, a sight that's not on film but is forever in my heart is the Torah being carried down the aisle and people reaching out with handkerchiefs and with their prayer shawls to kiss the Torah. What I learned was how deeply people feel about their worship. Very, very different beliefs, but very similar feelings. I never dreamed when I started the project that I would be so warmly welcomed. Time after time, people opened their prayer circles to me and welcomed me. It confirmed my fundamental belief that we are one family of earth and time. No matter what the differences between us, the similarities are stronger than those differences. And if you wonder whether after visiting those 50 different congregations I found a place where I could feel at home, the answer is yes. I went to Mount Vernon Unitarian Church. I went because I was going to be photographing a wedding there, and I wanted to see what the light was like and what the room was like. 4 months later, I joined that congregation. And that's a good segue to introduce the Reverend Dr. Kate Walker, who's the current minister at Mount Vernon Unitarian.
So we are honored to have Nina as part of our community at Mount Vernon Unitarian Church. We are located south of the city of Alexandria, which is why we're not in your collective. We're actually in Fairfax County, just off of Fort Hunt Road in the Mason Hill neighborhood. And we've been there since 1957 at the top of a hill. And one of the things that I really want to before I tell you about Unitarian Universalists, is just applaud this project of Convergence, because one of the things I was looking at these photographs in the 1980s is so many of the mainline churches have been hemorrhaging members since the 1950s and well into the 21st centuries, where the mainline churches are really losing members at extraordinary rates right now. This is a moment in time that is just going to be so precious. But you guys have a vision of what ministry needs to be and what community needs to be in the 21st century that really brings in the arts and embodiment. And I just so deeply applaud that and appreciate that so very, very much. I think it's what our younger generations really want. So Mount Vernon Unitarian Universalists, we are part of an association of churches. Our headquarters in Boston. We're a small denomination, but basically we're a multi-faith church. And I think that's what, after Nina's exploration of all the different faiths, she found a church where all the different faiths are welcomed. We have members who are Jewish, who are Christian, who are humanist, who are pagan, who are, I don't know, I'm still thinking about it. We have people who are theists, generic variety and abstract concepts of God, and we have atheists. And we come together because we really recognize that you do not need to believe alike to love alike. And the terms Unitarian Universalist, which people are often confused with unification and unity, there is no connection whatsoever. But Unitarian simply means theologically one God, as opposed to the Trinity. And that basically comes back to the 4th century when the Trinity was established, and there was a big debate in the Hilton back then, and we don't need to go into details, but the Trinity won the debate. And the Unitarians have basically been saying ever since, just one God, that's enough, that's one God. In today's 21st century world, we would say Unitarians just believe that there is a oneness that bonds us together. Universalist refers to universal salvation, that we believe that all of us are worthy of salvation. And in the 21st century, we would translate it into that we are responsible for salvation, each of us, you and I, in creating heaven on this earth. So that is Unitarian Universalism, and I'm delighted that Nina found a home with us.
So I would like us to do one thing together. It's the holding hands, the reaching out of the circle. It's something that means much to me for the way I was welcomed. And I would like us to hold hands as a group and to commit to Lisa's vision of a safe space for honest conversation about issues of race, religion, and gender. So if we could do that now, just come together.
I think we're going to need to stand.
And if you hold the camera, it's hard, but
We can do it.
that's good.
Back that way a little bit to join the circle. We can do it. You want to have the last
We
word?
can do it. We can so
We can
it.
do this. We can make a circle.
We got it. We got to get it out of that.
I didn't tell you I was going to do that.
May this exhibit be a space of healing, understanding, and new friendship.
Amen. So I will be available to answer questions outside, inside. In the future, you can call me, and I'll do the best I can.
She does do email and
I do email you. And I have a cell phone.
Thank you, Nina.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know how this helped you with David.
What happened with David?
how it helps you, David.
So if you'd like to stay and have some questions, why don't you go ahead and have a seat again if you'd like to stay and have some time to ask any questions. You can be comfortable.
David and I, it was never a question of love between us. It was a question. It was never a question of love between David and me. It was a question of profoundly different beliefs, and those beliefs remained profoundly different. David died of cancer in 2008, and he died believing that he would go to the arms of Jesus. I do not believe in Jesus as as God, as a God, as part of a Trinity, or as God. And that just stayed. We were friends, we loved each other, but nothing really changed. It helped me understand his needs. And I think he understood where I was coming from and appreciated what I was trying to do. Does that answer your question? The other question about the Yamaha, this is Jonathan's mom over here. This is the woman who asked about how come the child with the bar mitzvah wasn't wearing a yarmulke. And we don't know how come he wasn't. Maybe it was his curly hair and it wouldn't stay on.
And the other photograph of him being blessed by the rabbi, he was also not wearing a yarmulke.
Yeah.
I don't think it stayed on.
I think it's probably because he does everything his own way.